Sodanandana Brajajanadandana Yasodanandana Brajajanadandana Brajajanadan Yamuna Tira Vanachadi Yamuna Tira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajagacharya Astatarasata Sisi Mother Divine Grace Sisi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Gora Premanandi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya We're reading from Brahma's Prayers to Krishna, Chapter 14, Canto 10, Text number 2. And the first verse was Brahma praying to Krishna, describing his form, saying that particular form is something I can't understand, although I'm the source of all the Vedas within this world. My Vedic knowledge is insufficient to understand that form of yours. What to speak of understanding the bliss that you experience? And there's details and details about his form and the paraphernalia. His buffalo horn, his flute, stick for herding the calves. In his left hand, yogurt rice. So it's, and it's establishing, the first verse is establishing his wish to attain association with that form of Krishna. The next verse, text 2, my dear Lord, neither I nor anyone else can estimate the potency of this transcendental body of yours, which has shown such mercy to me, and which appears just to fulfill the desires of your pure devotees. Although my mind is completely withdrawn from material affairs, I cannot understand your personal form, then how could I possibly understand the happiness you experience within yourself? That's text 2. And in the morning we read the BBT commentary, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, and now we're reading a few more, starting with Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami. Are you familiar with who is Jiva Goswami? Not really. Yes? No? No. You're familiar with who is Lord Chaitanya? Yes. Okay. During Lord Chaitanya's time, he had many, many, many very elevated personalities who were his associates and disciples, followers. Chief amongst them were 6, called the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, many altars in ISKCON, in homes, and certainly in temples, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. 2 of them we're going to read commentaries of. One is Jiva Goswami, who is much younger, and Sanatana Goswami, who is much older, his uncle. the eldest amongst the 6 Goswamis, Sanatana Goswami. So they were living in Vrindavan, assigned by Lord Chaitanya to write books about Krishna. So that's what they're doing. They're writing, amongst other things, commentary. So this is Jiva Goswami's commentary, one of the 6 Goswamis, followers of Lord Chaitanya. He mentions first Sridhar Swami. Now a little bit Sridhar Swami background. Before Lord Chaitanya appeared, there was a commentator on Srimad Bhagavatam that Lord Chaitanya revered and accepted and taught his followers to also accept. So Jiva Goswami is going to make reference to Sridhar Swami. Sridhar Swami explains that this verse is an answer to the objection. Krishna may object. You offer respect to me, but actually you are simply describing my form. The actual purpose of this verse is to praise the Lord by describing his excellences. So there's his form, and there's paraphernalia connected with his form, and then now comes this verse is his excellences. Vibhutis. Only it's more than vibhuti. Vibhuti means excellences in this world, and Krishna's excellences are not of this world. So, his excellences, his opulences. Paragraph. No one can understand your body appearing as an avatar in this present form. Asya api. Avatar means one who descends from the spiritual realm into this realm is avatar. So no one can understand this avatar form of yours. Though it has become easily available to the world, meaning he's moving around the world and people can see him, but they can't understand him. He's accessible to their sight, but not to their intelligence. You have shown me mercy since you encourage my creation of the universe. That's Brahma's service. He's the creator of the universe. According to Sridhar Swami, Sakshat Tava, so it's going to go into different commentators are explaining this verse in different ways. It's within his commentary. So Sridhar Swami refers to Sakshad. Sakshad means self-same. Sakshad Tava means of you in the form of Bhagavan. And then it adds the word Eva, means only. So thus, Sakshad Tava Eva means of you who surpass all other avatars. That's what Jiva Goswami is saying, that Sridhar Swami is saying. And he has a slightly different view, which he's going to share. He, Sridhar Swami, explains the phrase Atma Sukhano Bhutehe, Atma Sukhano Bhutehe, as beyond the gunas. This means that he is not limited by the gunas, which are controlled by Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. His greatness as avatari means the source of avatars. So, Bhagavatam teaches that this form of Krishna in Vrindavan is the source of all avatars. And the special feature, distinguishing feature, is his blissfulness, because the verse is saying, I can't understand your bliss. I can't understand the happiness that you're experiencing being here in Vrindavan with your devotees. And then Jiva Goswami goes on to say, the Shrutis, the Shruti mantras, Shruti portion of the Vedas, speak this same point. Here's 2. Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad says, all living beings take their life from the Lord, who is full of bliss. And then from Taittiriya Upanishad, who could breathe without this Brahman if this blissful Brahman were not present? Taittiriya Upanishad. And Svetashvatar Upanishad is being quoted, something that Prabhupada quotes all the time. Parasya Shakti Rivadaiva Shruyate Swabhavaki Jnana Balakriyat Cha. The Lord has natural energies of knowledge, strength, and action. Lord Brahma does not state in this verse that Brahman is incomprehensible in its impersonal feature, for he explains that Krishna, with his personal feature, is more difficult to understand than Brahman. In verse 6, this is verse 2. So coming up, he's letting us know, explicitly Brahma says, if you think impersonal Brahman is difficult, the personal feature is more difficult. And there's reasons why. And if the universal form, what Arjuna saw, the universal form. If the universal form, Bhuta Mayasya, is hard to understand, then what can one say about your form? And then Jiva Goswami writes, my explanation varies slightly from Sridhar Swami's, but it agrees with Chitsukha, another commentator, who explains that the phrase Sakshat Tava Eva means that the Lord spreads everywhere up to Brahmaloka by his subtle bodies. In this case, subtle bodies means the spiritual bodies, which are inconceivable, made of Shuddha Sattva. This is a big topic, philosophically. The Lord is all-pervasive, and he's localized. This was like a big issue in the Damodar Leela, because we just finished Kartik month, the Damodar month. So Mother Jasoda can't bind Krishna because he's all-pervasive. So how can you bind something that's limited, like a rope, with a rope, something that's all-pervasive? You can't. So she couldn't bind him, she couldn't bind him, she couldn't bind him. But then he also has a human size or medium size, Martyalingam, and so she could bind him. He just allowed her to bind him. So it's an important topic. It comes up in different ways, different places. Simultaneously, Krishna is all-pervasive, and he's limited, which are contradictions. Something limited is not all-pervasive. Something all-pervasive is not limited. He's both simultaneously by his inconceivable potencies. Very convenient, right? You just say inconceivable potencies and poof, everything's nice. But that's how it works. He has inconceivable potencies that he can do this and that at the same time. He can be bigger than the biggest and smaller than the smallest at the same time. He can be inside everything and outside everything at the same time. We can't. So it looks like double talk, but it's not. It's his inconceivable potencies. And so Sakshat Tava Eva, according to Jiva Goswami, it means the Lord exists everywhere in this within the creation up to Brahmaloka, so Patalaloka up to Brahmaloka and everything in between. He's all pervasive by his spiritual forms, or spiritual identity made of Shuddha Sattva. Okay. Now he's going to support. Shruti describes the Lord as, quote, he is the Lord with spiritual body. There he goes. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. He has a spiritual form. So is spiritual limited by matter? No. So his spiritual forms can be all pervasive. Yes? Yes. because matter is something that's limiting, and something that's limiting can't limit the unlimited. Same as the Damodar Lila. He goes on, within the Vishnu Sahasranam, one of the names of Vishnu is Lokanato Mahabhutam. Lokanato Mahad Bhutam. What's that? He is the Lord of the universe with a spiritual body. Thus, the phrase Tanu Bhuta Mayasya indicates the Lord with a spiritual body. Sridhar Swami explains. He's going back and forth between his ideas and Sridhar Swami's ideas, kind of like building a case for his rendering of what's being said by Brahma. Sridhar Swami explains that because Krishna is Bhagavan, there's no question of a controller above him or being controlled by anyone. Since it was already said that the universal form does not control him, no one controls him, and he is never to be controlled by anyone. The qualities, because that's what this second verse is, his opulences or characteristics or qualities, the qualities of this particular form were described in the previous verse as features. Now here is my own explanation. Quote, Krishna is saying, why do you praise me? By describing this form with the yogurt, rice, and flute. In answer to this verse is spoken by Brahma. With reverence, he admits his incompetence. You have a body of the presiding deity of the universe, Deva Asya, which is called Narayana, displayed in the four-armed forms just shown to me. So what happened in the previous chapter, Brahma Vimohan Lila, you familiar? No. Brahma went to visit Krishna, pay his respects to Krishna in Vrindavan. On that particular day that he visited, Krishna killed the Aghasura demon, the big serpent. And then Brahma saw that. Like, wow. And then after the killing of Aghasura demon, Krishna and all of his friends, 5-year-old boys, they went to have lunch. So Brahma got this bright idea. I'd like to see the limit of Krishna's mystic powers. I have mystic powers. I can create a universe. And it's not just, engineering. It takes mystic power to build the universe. So he steals the calves and cowherd boys and puts them in a cave and comes back to see what Krishna is going to do. And there's the calves and the cowherd boys having lunch, or the cowherd boys having lunch and the calves grazing. And then he sees not just the cowherd boys and calves, but each one of them, thousands and thousands of Narayana forms, each showing the symbols of Narayan, each showing the opulences of Narayan and the different potencies of Narayan and this and that and the other thing. And then it's all withdrawn. So he's seen that Krishna is the source of Narayan, all the Narayan forms of the spiritual realm. Krishna, this little boy, 5-year-old boy, he's the source of all of that. You have the body of a presiding deity of the universe, which is called Narayan, displayed in the four-arm forms just shown to me. But they actually belong to one body. That one body is standing before him. Brahma will later say, in this chapter 14, Narayano Angam Narabhu Jala Yanat. Narayana is your expansion, and he is called Narayana because he is the generating source of the primeval water of the universe, the causal ocean. The causal ocean. And the Garbhodak ocean. and he's the Narayana, or expansions of Narayana. They're the source of these oceans, the primeval water of the universe. Last paragraph. This body, Krishna, the little cowherd boy Krishna, this body is then described. It has given me mercy, etc. This form is directly Bhagavan, Sakshat Tava Eva. Your happiness is exclusively known by yourself. By showing just one of the forms that you showed me, you are merciful. Just by that one form, I can understand your glory. That was Jiva Goswami's commentary. Now here's Sanatana Goswami. Krishna's considering, you offer me respects, but actually, you are simply describing my form. This verse answers, though you manifested many forms, you are only one form, Vapushaha. Or it could mean any form. That form showed me mercy because you protect my creation by destroying adharma and propagating dharma. Your body is not made of material elements like that of effulgent devatas. It is made of Parabrahman, not material body. Atma Sukhanubhutehe. Your form is direct knowledge or experience of Atma as happiness. Because of this, it cannot be understood by the inner mind. What to speak of direct perception, therefore, I have described this form I saw. It's a little technical. Our acharyas are going through the words of Brahma's speech and shedding light on how are we to understand what he's saying. Sanatana Goswami goes on, no one can understand the greatness of your cowherd boy form, Tava Pushaha, superior to your form as the Lord of Vaikuntha, Deva Vapushaha. No one can understand the greatness, Mahi, of your cowherd form. What to speak of your form as Brahman, Atma Sukhanubhutehe. The four-arm forms are superior to your form as Brahman, but the cowherd boy form is greater than the Vaikuntha forms, Divya Vapushaha. Giving me mercy, an offender, is your free will. Svecha Mayasya. You give mercy not only to devotees, as in the Damodar pastimes, but to all jivas. So he gave mercy to Mother Yasoda because of her love. He allowed himself to be bound and so forth. And so many things. The elder gopis and the elder gopas and the whole thing. The trees fell down, and mercy to Nalakovera Manigriva. He gives mercy to all jivas. It's his nature. Are you not the cause of all entities? Not to Bhuta Mayasya. Yes, you are the sole shelter of the entire universe. You have appeared to give benefit to the world. Descriptions of the Lord's form are the highest praise, as in the following. And we're almost done with this evening class. There's two references. One reference is from Canto 10, Chapter 3. That's Krishna has made his appearance in the prison house of Kamsa. And then Vasudeva is offering prayers. Then Devaki offers prayers. So this is one of those prayers. That form which they say is invisible, the cause of all causes, the greatest, self-manifesting, without qualities, without change, pure existence, without variety, and without action, is directly you, the Supreme Lord, who manifests our intelligence. So he's all this. This form is not easy to understand, but by his mercy, he reveals his form and the understanding of his form, because he manifests their intelligence to understand him. And then the previous chapter is, he's not born yet, chapter 2, is the demigods offering prayers. Because Krishna's in the womb of Devaki and they know it, and they come into the prison house and offer their prayers. The Devatas prayed, quote, "O Lord, you are true to your promise, truth incarnate, pervading all aspects of time with truth. Before the creation, during its existence, and after its destruction, you are the revealer of sweet words and truth. We surrender to you, the embodiment of truth." So Satyam appears many times in that, in the Sanskrit. He's not of this world. They are, and they know that he's not of this world. And yet, although he's not of this world, he's appearing as a son of Devaki. So they're aware of his position, his opulence, his transcendental identity, and they're going back now. Brahma, he's the chief of the demigods. Whatever the demigods know, they learn from Brahma. And he, from yesterday's discussion, he received, even before the creation, he received knowledge of the personality of Godhead from the personality of Godhead directly. That's in Canto 2. And in Brahma Samhita prayers, he's offering wonderful prayers indicating truths about the personality of Godhead. And now, to pay his respects to Krishna, while he's performing his Vrindavan pastimes, he's seeing Krishna, and it's, wow. Because of his curiosity, he didn't say anything, but he wanted to see the limit of Krishna's opulences, and the answer is, there's no limit to my opulences. So he's now saying, I can't understand your opulences. I can't understand your form. I can't understand your happiness, although I'm supposed to be the one that manifests the Vedas. And people know me that way. But the Vedas don't touch this. Most of the Vedas don't touch this very elevated subject. Some point towards it. But the Srimad Bhagavatam is revealing it, and Brahma is revealing it through this chapter. Although it's a little bit like Queen Kunti in her prayers. She says, I don't understand this, that, and the other thing, and through her prayers, it's clear she understands this and that and the other thing. Part of it's humility, and part of it is there's a difference then between, we were discussing this morning, there's a difference between theoretically knowing and fully experiencing. Like, we know we're not this body. How much are we realizing that in moment-to-moment life's existence? We don't have a problem with acknowledging we're not the body, we're spirit soul. But so much of our life is centered around the body and maintaining the body and so forth. So being in the Brahma Bhuta stage of spiritual realization, its first symptom is prasanatma, joyful, from within, always, not circumstantial, from without, always from within. So Brahma wants that. And this section is helping us to at least have the proper understanding of Krishna Tattva. And it's profound, as we're hearing. The universal form is really difficult to understand. The impersonal Brahman is, we can talk about it, but it's difficult to understand. But more difficult to understand is this personal feature, because it's accessed only through bhakti. And we're used to trying to understand things a different way than through bhakti. That bhakti means Krishna will reveal. Okay, so that's our evening discussion. Let's see if there's some questions or points you'd like to bring up.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
The question of confusion
Okay.
is when Krishna was born in the prison,
Yeah.
doesn't the demigods are aware of that is Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself?
Yes. Yes, they were.
They were. So my question is, so being chief of the demigods, Brahma, during that episode of Aghasura, when he saw Krishna, didn't he understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or didn't he understand the features of his?
He had an understanding, but not complete. My picture is this. Wow, I just saw what I saw. And I'm curious. I would like to know what's the limit of the power, the mystic power of Krishna. So he knew that he was the personality of Godhead, but he didn't really understand the fullness. And now he's better understanding fullness because Krishna showed him what he showed him. There is no limit, and on and on and on. It's specifically, he didn't understand that childlike form. Indra had the same problem, right? Who is this little boy stopping my yajna? I'll show them. Okay, go ahead.
Continuation to that is, so if personality like Brahma couldn't understand his features, how about a pure devotee or even us? I know you mentioned one is bhakti process. Is that the only means, or?
Well, he was a bhakta. Brahma was not a non-devotee, he was a devotee. And then amongst those who are devotees, there are different stages of understanding or realization. And he's way up there. He's the original preceptor of our Sampradaya. He's the one who directly receives the Vedas. He distributes the Vedas to all the praja, and he's the Pitamaha. He's a good teacher because he knows the Vedas. Knowing the Vedas, part of the point is, knowing the Vedas is not sufficient to know the personal feature of Krishna in Vrindavan. And back to he's a devotee, but there's grades of devotees. And he's understanding, at least theoretically, he's understanding that you, Krishna, I thought I understood, but I can't understand this little form because you manifested all what you manifested, and you're appearing as the son of Nanda Maharaj, but you're the source of everybody and everything. It's bewildering. The mood of that we discussed it this morning, the mood of the Rajbasis, they don't see that. Or what it says about Mother Jasoda. The fact that Mother Jasoda saw the universe within the body of Krishna is not the wonderful thing. The wonderful thing is she didn't understand what she saw. So that looked like, well, wait a minute, that's less than if someone understands what she saw. But the greatness is, her love is so strong, it overwhelms her ability to understand what she saw. Because what she saw is, he's the source of everything. And Her love is so strong she can't see that because it would interfere with her love. How can you be mother of that which is the source of everything? You can't. Now, Mother Devaki, she had a mix. The prayers, you're the Supreme Lord, please assume a childlike form. He assumed a childlike form. So she has mix of motherhood and understanding majesty. But the love of Mother Yasoda, and all the residents of Vrindavan for that matter, is so exalted, they just can't see, which sounds contradictory. If you have something you can't see, then you're less. But that love is so strong, that's why they can't see. Although he shows. And others come and tell them, and they still can't understand it when they tell them. He goes and steals. When he hears lightning and thunder, he comes crying. He's the personality of Godhead. Come on. So that's their greatness, and Brahma is appreciating that greatness. And so it's another level of bhakti, is the point. He understands what he understands because Krishna revealed to him what he understands, because he's a devotee, an exalted devotee, which has very important service. But there's limits to his bhakti compared in comparison to the residents of Vrindavan. They have greater bhakti. Is it clear?
Yes.
It's mysterious. It's a little bit contradictory sounding, but it's once you hear it enough times. I'm speaking for myself now. Hearing it so many times, it starts to be a reality. Oh. That's the nature of their love, and that's the nature of how Krishna reciprocates with those that love him to that degree, with that intensity, with that completeness. And Brahma is seeing both, like Devaki is seeing both. My son, the Supreme Lord. It's a contradiction. Brahma is seeing both, but he's not at. So he's acknowledging, I don't understand this form. I understand the Narayan form better than I understand this form. I understand the universal form better than I understand the Narayan form better than I understand this form, but I don't understand this form. Okay. Do we have anything online or in the room? We have something? Yes? Vrindavan.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. So you were mentioning about Lord Narayana. So which avatar is he? Like, because I understand Vishnu forms the Purusha avatars and all. Where does the Lord Narayana is in Vaikuntha? Or?
Two things. The word, the nomenclature Narayana, yes, definitely refers to the Lord of Vaikuntha. And the second point is, in many cases, Narayana and Vishnu are used interchangeably, like here. No, which was it, A or B? Did Krishna show Narayan forms, or B, he showed Vishnu forms? Or both? Because the nomenclatures can be, they're used interchangeably in that circumstance. More technically, Vishnu is something different than Narayan. But it's indicating, the Bhagavan feature. Okay?
So this question is from Rasa Krida Prabhu. As Krishna appears in once in a day of Brahma, so is this Brahma Vimohan Leela is performed every time Krishna appears, or once after that Brahma understands Krishna's true form?
Oh, is that a good question? Well, we don't know for sure if it happens each day of Brahma. And second point is, the pastimes that Krishna performs at Vrindavan are such that the Yogamaya potency permits people to forget what they already knew. There's two examples of what I just said. One is when the residents of Vrindavan become curious if Krishna is the personality of Godhead after Nanda Maharaj comes back from the abode of Varuna and tells them what happened in the abode of Varuna, they go, wow, maybe he is the personality of Godhead. If he is, would he be willing to show us the spiritual world so Krishna understands their desire? They didn't say it, but he knew it's their desire. He's in their heart. So he showed them the spiritual world. And after he showed them the spiritual world, the curtain of Yogamaya closed and they forgot everything. Another example, very interesting example, comes in Brihat Bhagavatamrita. As you know, that's Sanatana Goswami's writing. And in Brihat Bhagavatamrita, there's a really elaborate description of Krishna's departure from Vrindavan on the chariot of Akrura going to Mathura. Right? And somewhere in there, in that section, it says that Krishna actually returns regularly, and the residents of Vrindavan completely forget that he left. And then he leaves again. And then Krishna comes back and they forget that he did it twice. Because there's such an ecstasy involved in the pastime, he does it again and again. And that's in one, this is Brihat Bhagavatamrita. It's not the normal explanation that we find in the Bhagavatam or anywhere else. The point, these are two examples that by Yogamaya's influence, one can forget what one has already experienced and understands. Mahamaya can also cause us to forget. That happens all the time. But Yogamaya works like that. They just forget. Here's another example. A third example. During this Brahma Vimohan Leela, the cowherd boys were in the cave for 1 year. They didn't get your little boys not eating for a whole year. They weren't yogis. They just were under the influence of the Lord's potency and they forgot. When they came out, a whole year had passed, and Krishna comes and they said, oh, you're so attached to us, you can't be away from us for even a moment. Sit down and have your lunch. The point is, you get back to your question, does this happen at every day of Brahma? We don't have indication that it does or doesn't. But if it does, then it's, Yogamaya permits Brahma to forget everything that he learned in his, the previous day and the next day and the next day. If it's like that. Because it's the same Brahma for these one universe's duration. Each day when Krishna appears.
This question is from Anita Mataji from here, from Nepal. When Brahma, an exalted personality, cannot understand Krishna, how about the conditioned souls? How can we understand Krishna?
We understand Krishna by the mercy of Krishna. And you get the mercy of Krishna through the mercy of those who have received the mercy of Krishna. So That's how. The love of the resident of Vrindavan is achieved, is the way to understand Krishna as they understand. Brahma doesn't understand the way the Brijvasis understand Krishna, so how could he or you or I or any one of us achieve that love of the resident of Vrindavan? That's Rupa Goswami's teachings, Lord Chaitanya's teaching. That's Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. By that method, one can know Krishna as they know Krishna, and not otherwise.
And this is a little general question. This question is from Kalpataru Mataji. She has two questions. First, oftentimes, out of emotions or attachment, I feel I make wrong choices, which leads to a sense of performance of bootless errand that leaves me with a feeling of tensity.
With the feeling of
Tensity. Tension.
being tense and anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thinking I did not make best use of my time. In Bhagavad Gita chapter 10, Krishna says, I am the mighty time. And that verse 10:30 indicate that
Yeah.
time needs to be valued as God.
Yes.
So her first question, while making choices, I struggle with karma, akarma, vikarma, but my intentions are good or clear. Does good intentions take precedence over actions? If the action I choose to perform is karma or vikarma category, which I'm unaware of, does good intention take precedence?
Well, they're supposing you stick your hand in fire with good intention. Is fire going to burn? Fire is going to burn. Now, the responsibility for intentional deviation or adharma, so it is different than accidental or unintentional. This is like the punishment or punishment or the reaction for something that's intentional, like an intentional crime, deliberate crime, planned murder. There's first degree, second degree, third degree, and unintentional kind of thing. So intention is important. If your intention is sincere, Krishna will put you on course correction. But you're still responsible if you put your hand in fire. You make a wrong decision thinking whatever you were thinking when you put your hand in fire.
And her second question is, wearing many different hats in a day of a mother, daughter, colleague, devotee, and so on, there is this constant struggle of not having time. So the question is, curiosity question, does Krishna facilitate more than the given time to a devotees or pure devotees or Nitya Siddhas if they pray or wish for? If yes, do we have a scriptural reference that I can relate to?
It's described, I was searching for it not so long ago. It's described in Ishopanishad that the time energy in the Prabhupada's purport, maybe you recall where it's found, the time energy works differently for devotees, non-devotees. For the non-devotees that's busy with fruitive work, they don't have time. They'll say, we don't have time. And for those who are devotees, the time is there. Time just acts differently for those who are averse to Krishna, those that are inclined to Krishna. So he doesn't give a scriptural reference, he just describes it. Plus, that's all of our practical experience. When we, a scriptural reference is one of the symptoms of bhava in bhava bhakti is one is very much anxious to use time carefully. It's a symptom of bhava. So maybe you've reached the bhava stage. Or if you continue like this, you will.
So there are 3 questions from Taruni Radha Mataji. First one, Hare Krishna Maharaj, Guru Maharaj, please can you let me know how was it that when Brahma was born, it was total darkness that prevailed around him? Didn't the effulgence from Garbhodakashaya Vishnu illuminate the universal shell?
It indicates darkness in all directions. So what happens to the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu and the hoods of Sheshanag and the illumination on the hoods of Sheshanag doesn't say anything. Just says there's darkness in all directions.
And her second question is, we hear from scriptures that Radharani wears red attire while Krishna yellow. My question is it the only color that they wear? As we hear, the spiritual world is dynamic and not static.
Yeah, he likes the yellow dhotis, but I don't know if Radharani only wears a red sari.
And the third question is, when Brahma says that he can relate and understand Narayana, but not Krishna, is that because the more simpler it gets, the more hard it is to perceive the wonder and beauty of Krishna as compared to Narayana?
Something like that. Not exactly, but something like that. That Krishna is the sum total of everything. If you can understand some portion of the sum total of everything, that may be easier than the sum total of everything. And specifically, in this case, the sweetness aspect is not understandable without entering into that mood of sweetness, which he doesn't have. No, notionally, theoretically, to some degree he has, because he's speaking it. And he speaks it in Brahma Samhita, but, the directly experience, we discussed this in the morning class, the direct experience is something other than having a conceptual understanding. Direct experience is greater.
So similarly, is that the reason why only the simple-hearted souls can get entrance to the spiritual world?
Yeah. But there's different aspects and places and features of the spiritual world.
So the next question is Girivaradhari Prabhu. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, is it true that the 6 Goswamis are actually Manjaris who are Raja Gopis? Serving Goswamis means we get opportunities to serve the Lord's love or association of Lord's love?
Yes. There's their spiritual identity and then there's their pastime identity. But they have the mood of that spiritual identity. That's their identity. Their Siddha or their spiritual form. Yeah.
And this question is from Vishaka, Atulya Mataji's daughter. Can Krishna come to earth and turn himself not as God?
Can Krishna do what?
Come to earth and turn himself not as God?
Turn himself? Is this a trick question, Vishaka? Because if I say no, then there's something he can't do. He can come to this earth and appear as a half man, half lion. He can come as a tortoise or a fish or dwarf Brahman. So he can appear not as Krishna. Sure. And he can appear as Krishna too.
And this next question is from Sanchari. Guru Maharaj, how can the demigods who have the ability to view Krishna's pastimes and sometimes take part in them still not gain a true understanding of who Krishna is? How is it that they have this capacity to view Krishna's pastimes, especially his Braja Leela, when they are still, as per my understanding, of mixed devotional service?
Well, you say mixed devotional service, and that may mean different things to different people. They're devotees. They're just not on the topmost level of devotion. They do have material desires, I guess, because they like controlling. That's why they're demigods. But it's not a good idea for you or me to start minimizing their exalted position, because they're very exalted. But the main thing is they while they understand the position of Krishna as the supreme Bhagavan, they don't have the full understanding, like Brahma is one of them, of the original feature of Krishna in Vrindavan. Their understanding is not as complete as the residents of Vrindavan, because their love is not the same kind of love as the residents of Vrindavan. They have their understanding, and they're exalted devotees. And even they see his pastimes, they're bewildered by them.
And, this next question is from Amrita Kelly Mataji. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. It's intriguing to hear that understanding the personal form of the Lord than his impersonal form. You mentioned that it's because the only means is through bhakti, which is very rare. We hear in many places in Bhagavad Gita, mainly in chapters 5 and 6, that all other yoga processes are very difficult, impractical, and are not assured of success. In that sense, my understanding is personal form is more easier to approach and understand. Kindly share if this understanding is correct.
Sounds correct. Sounds like you're just repeating chapter 5 and 6, Bhagavad Gita.
Second question. You mentioned this will be further elaborated in verse 6. If you would like me to wait for that, I can ask this question when we discuss.
Yes.
And this is from Govinda, Varshana Mataji's 5-year-old son. How did Krishna get all these potencies?
He went to the potency store and said, I'd like a big supply of potencies. No, that was a joke. He got all these potencies not from some other source, but from himself, because he is the source. He is the source, so he doesn't get them from some other place. Okay? We're done for the evening? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.